When you think of an early 90s tornado, many will think of Andover, Plainfield, Heston, but I think of another storm, much closer to home. This storm, albeit not as deadly as others, it still left a mark in Central Virginian history. This is the 1993 Petersburg Colonial Heights Hopewell F4. Hey everybody, I haven't made a video like this on my channel before, but I've always had an interest in weather, ever since I was a little kid. Anytime I would hear even the smallest chance of tornadoes, my eyes were like locked on to the Weather Channel, and it has stayed with me since childhood to the present day. And I, in recent months, have really gotten back into weather again, and I've been watching YouTubers like Ryan Hall and Karl, Weatherbox. I've watched Swiggle Studios. All of these channels have really kind of brought back my love for weather, and I wanted to make a video kind of in the same realm of these channels, kind of inspired by these channels. So I'll leave a link to their channels down below. You guys should really go check them out. I mean, if you're here, how did you even get here? Like, I don't know how you got here if you don't know them. But yeah, so I wanted to make a video about this tornado because I feel like it's kind of overlooked within the weather community. Not really many people know about it, and the people that do don't really know the full story. And plus, I have a personal connection with this. In fact, my mother's boyfriend, he survived the tornado, and I wanted to talk about this because, for one, it's very close to home, and by that I mean, like, I live like 30 minutes from here where this happened. And Virginia doesn't get a lot of attention in the weather world because it's very tame here. We do get some bad storms every now and then, but nothing too bad, and it's always very weak storms. Like, we had up in Culpeper County, we had an F1 not too long ago. So I wanted to kind of talk about something that's local, and I did a bit of research to talk about it. So I guess let's get into it. Virginia, on average, gets about 18 tornadoes per year, which is not a lot by other states, because other states get a lot more. And storms that usually come through the mountains usually only make, a lot of rain, possibly some hail, and some strong winds. It's occasional that we'll get a brief spin-up tornado, because we only really get brief week, or we only really get spin-up tornadoes that last a couple minutes and then they lift. So they don't really stay on the ground for very long. But there are exceptions to this. The tornado we're talking about touched down at 1:30 p.m. in Petersburg and very quickly grew in size before hitting the historical district in Petersburg. It would go on to destroy many well-built brick buildings in the historic district, and on the bottom floor of one of these buildings was a restaurant. There were 30 people huddled up in this restaurant, taking shelter from the storm. All of them would survive. Most of the damage in this section of town was rated F2. Within this damage path, there were little bits within the path that had damage that was much more violent. And this would lead surveyors, meteorologists to the conclusion that this was a multi-vortex tornado, and that there were little subvortices within the parent circulation that were producing up to F4 damage. While it was in the historic district, it hit a train station that had a caboose on display that was anchored into the ground, and it was sitting on a small piece of rail. After the tornado, this caboose was found 20 feet away from where it was sitting, and it had been pulled out of the ground. It and the anchors were pulled out of the ground.
2 blocks from downtown Petersburg, in my office working on a story for the 6 o'clock news. What I heard and what the people in my office building heard was just loud wind. In fact, you could hear the whistle in the doors. All of a sudden, we heard somebody run out in the street saying, a roof's off a building. I grab my gear and I start running. You think that you're going to see a building with the roof off. No, that's not what you see. You see total devastation. Those people who are working downtown, there were tens of people trapped. There were 2 or 3 people trapped inside several restaurants. I spoke with several people. The head of the Department of Tourism, Bill Martin, his car was destroyed.
After going through the historic district, it would weaken slightly down to F3 intensity and hit Pocahontas Island around 1:30 p.m. and heavily damaged or destroyed 47 of the 57 houses on the island. About 80% of the island was completely destroyed. On Pocahontas Island, there was a 200-year-old church that was destroyed, but within the church, a Bible that had been left open on a podium was left completely untouched.
The Pocahontas Chapel behind me was a site where former slaves were taught, but 20 years ago this site was destroyed in a tornado. Today it's still standing, in part because of this community's resolve to keep its history alive. This is Pocahontas Island, about half a mile away from Old Town. At its height, it was home to some 250 people. The neighborhood calls itself the oldest black community in the nation, and it's standing tall despite the tornado that ripped through here 20 years ago come August.
By this point in its path, 40 people were injured and over 100 buildings were damaged or destroyed. But the tornado was not done yet. Editing Aiden here. I forgot to state this when I was recording, but a tornado warning was not issued until 1:35 p.m. This is when the tornado was just entering Colonial Heights. It then crossed into Colonial Heights, where it entered into the South Park shopping mall. In the South Park shopping mall, there were many large stores. There was a Kmart, there was a waterbed store, and most notably, a Walmart. When the tornado hit the mall, all hell broke loose. Windows were blown out, walls collapsed, roofs collapsed. It was mayhem, and it was at this time when a subvortex would hit the Walmart and cut through a section of the Walmart. And in this Walmart, 3 women would unfortunately die when the roof collapsed.
It was kind of like going into shock because it seemed so unreal. You're at Walmart shopping for school supplies, and all of a sudden the ceiling caves in on you.
My mom's boyfriend was in the Walmart when the tornado hit, and he would survive. In addition to those 3 women that were killed, 198 were injured. After it hit the Walmart, the tornado would cross the Appomattox River at around 1:40 p.m. Located about a mile from the Walmart was a company named Tarmac Virginia Incorporated, which was located on Puddle Dock Road. It was impacted. The second floor of the building collapsed, and many of the company's employees sought shelter in this section of the building. And when it collapsed, 1 man was killed. Several cars and trucks at the job site were thrown and destroyed. After hitting Tarmac Virginia Incorporated, it crossed Interstate 295 at around 1:45 p.m. It entered into the city of Hopewell. It produced F1 damage as it sliced through the northern section of the city. The hardest hit area was the Riverside Park apartment complex, where it ripped off several roofs. Here, it would do damage to a further 62 homes and completely destroying 2. In Hopewell, 8 people were injured. As the tornado exited Hopewell, it weakened down to F0 intensity as it crossed Route 10. As it passed a junction of the Appomattox and James Rivers, the tornado dissipated. The tornado was on the ground for 15 to 20 minutes. It traveled 12 miles, and the estimated damage was around $47.5 million. And that's not even counting inflation. I'll put the inflated total on screen. And by the end of it, it had ruined numerous people's lives and livelihoods.
Petersburg was just coming back beautifully. Old Town was, getting a critical mass for tourism and businesses, and then boom, just like that, in a few seconds, it was all gone.
15 years later, scars from the storm remain.
And there's the building being worked on. It's been 15 years since the tornado hit, and one of the last buildings is just now under construction to get rehab.
Luckily, they got warnings out to people beforehand, and if they hadn't, it probably would have been much worse. However, a lot of people were still shopping at the time, and again, this was 1993, so you wouldn't have cell phone alerts. You would only really hear about this if you had a radio or if you had a television, if you had your television turned on. And a lot of people who were out shopping wouldn't have known. I do eventually want to talk about some other tornadoes that were a big part of my life, as well as, part of events that you may not know about. So let me know if you want to see more content like this, because I've kind of wanted to make something like this for a while. I just haven't had the motivation to. But yeah, I wanted to just, thank you all for watching, and, maybe leave a comment about, the video. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, whatever, any little bit of support or engagement helps. Thank you, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.